Hello.
So, what we're going to do is, Daniel, please, for anybody who doesn't know you, just tell them just a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, about me. Well, you pretty much said it. Director, producer. More recently, dabbled with writing. Um, yeah, I mean, between 2015 and now, we've pretty much been making short films under our production company, Viral Films UK. We've made 4 or 5, maybe 6 short films over the last 5 or 6 years, and we are now currently in production on our first feature film, which yourself are somewhat involved with to a small degree, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, we primarily make horror movies. We like to try and do things a little bit differently in that we try and uh, make things that we've either never seen before or try and tell a story in a way that we've never seen before. So we try and take a kind of unique-ish perspective on making movies and telling stories. And story is always the primary thing. What's the story we're going to tell? We start with that. We don't just go, well, let's make a horror movie and let's just cover everybody in blood and run around and film it, and we'll make some kind of story around that. It's always a story first. So that's the most important thing. And then yeah, just trying to tell it in the most interesting way we can, and try and make the best film we can for whatever money we've got, which usually isn't a lot.
Yeah. So, what actually got you into horror in the first place?
Well, growing up, in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, and just generally watching a lot, consuming a lot of TV and film and stuff, you kind of, I had quite a healthy or unhealthy, depending on how you look at it, diet of kind of horror movies. So you name it, I'd probably seen it at that point, and I probably shouldn't have been, but back in the days we used to rent movies at actual brick and mortar stores. Yeah, it was just one of those things. Really, we just always had a lot of horror movies around, and just I kind of had free reign to watch whatever I wanted to. Yeah, so it was just being exposed to that kind of era of movies, a lot of sort of cool stuff coming out, a lot of B movies, a lot of horror movies. And I think what ultimately kind of drew me to saying, when it comes to filmmaking side of things, I want to make horror movies, because I just think there's a lot more area to play around with, story wise, and do a lot with, because I think if you're going to make like an action movie, your audience kind of knows roughly what to expect from it. Like, if you make a drama or a romantic drama or something like that, you kind of know what you're going to get. And so with horror, again, going back to sort of just renting stuff off the shelf, looking at a cool bit of artwork and saying, yeah, we'll watch that tonight, you never know what you're going to get. So like with horror, it kind of that, I know we've got subgenres and everything like that, but
Yeah.
you can have like a film that's like a real slow burn kind of movie that's more sort of on the dramatic side, but then turns into a horror movie in the last act, which is kind of a little bit like For Her, which we'll watch in a bit. Or you can have on the other end of the spectrum, a total bloodbath from scene one sort of thing onwards. So you're never really sure
Yeah.
what you're gonna get, and that always, it just seemed like a more sort of a bit more of a fun playground to play in than I don't know. I still enjoy action movies, and I still enjoy the odd drama or whatever here and there, depending on what it is. But from a filmmaker's perspective, it's just a lot more fun because yeah, I get to flick blood at people and you know
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Stuff you don't normally do in your day-to-day life unless you're a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you can't beat a big blood splatter. And to be covered in it, I'm guessing that's going to be one of the highlights of any horror film, I would think.
I
So,
get quite
did your
jealous of our
parents?
actors.
Yeah. Did your parents kind of encourage? you into this field?
I
Or
don't know
was that
necessarily it was intentional. Um, I know. Again, having a lot of kind of movies, like we had a ridiculous collection of films at home, and we also had like a lot of books. I remember there being, and I'd love to track it down. There was a book of like makeup effects stuff, like cool stuff from like back in the day, like your Dawn of the Dead's, all the way through to sort of the sort of mid 80s, kind of where prosthetic effects and stuff like that, practical stuff was a real big thing. Um, and I remember reading, looking through that, and thinking, "Wow, okay, this is how this stuff's made. This is like it's way more interesting than just like you know like any other kind of type of genre of movies. There's all this stuff that goes into it, and all these people that work behind the camera. I remember being a very young age, thinking, well, that's just something I'd like to do. I'd like to be behind the camera and just make these kind of films, and it just seemed there's something really intriguing to me about it. But I don't think there's necessarily anything they pushed. I don't think any parent really pushes that onto their kids, but it was just like the material was there, so it was just like I gravitated towards it a little bit, you know.
yeah? Well, I mean that's good because like there is some people that like obviously they will show that interest in like the filmmaking, and the parents will give them like a guide into either any kind of industry. So if it's engineering, they'll sort of like steer them in that direction and stuff like that. So, but if you had sort of like free range and you was just like, nah, I'm gonna do this because this is what I want to do, that's
Yeah,
big props on your respect because you took that initiative
yeah.
to get from day to day life and normal jobs to
I think it was like it's one of those things, because obviously growing up as a kid and that, like the prospect of making a film was like, it almost seemed like the inachievable, like the only sort of cameras we kind of had access to were like VHS, or very tape based, standard def, very unfilmic like cameras. And so obviously we'd shoot stuff, messing around with friends and stuff, shoot home videos and stuff like that. And
yeah,
it was always just naff, just terrible, but it was always fun to do. um but the idea at that point, because film was still film, it was still shot on film, it still cost money, so let's have a film camera. They cost a fortune. But growing, obviously, the older I got, the more I got into my teens, I actually realized, the digital revolution in terms of filmmaking came along, and ever since then it's just made filmmaking so much more affordable, that it means we can do what we do now. We wouldn't, like 10 years ago, or 15, 10 years ago, we would not have been able to do what we do now. It would just be
yeah,
impossible on the money we've got, at least. So yeah, it's kind of cool that it's sort of all worked out that way, because I feel like, if that digital, I think people growing up now who want to be filmmakers are quite lucky, really, because it's just that much more possible for them to do these things. And the tools are just there. They're so easy to sort of get hold of now. It's not, there's no, the barrier for like entry in terms of making films is just quite low now. So it's easy for anyone to just kind of pick up,
yeah,
and people shoot films. I mean, you shot a short on your phone, and that's,
yeah,
and
yeah,
people have actually shot movies that have gone to like Sundance and things like that on mobile phones, and legitimately had them released and stuff. Which, you go back 10 years, that would have just been, people would have just lost their minds over that, the whole idea of it.
yeah, yeah. Everything seems a lot more accessible. The equipment's, it, you can get the cheaper equipment and you can work your way up, but the, the main thing behind it is obviously the script, the writing, and then the actual, then putting it into motion. So that's the hardest bit. But like you say, for the equipment and everything's quite easily accessible now. You know, for them to make stuff
Yeah.
if they've got the idea.
Oh yeah, exactly. I
But if
mean, it's
you,
like, oh,
go on. I was going to say, it was like, obviously, Did you ever think about doing acting, or was you primarily just focused to be like behind the camera?
I think like we did drama in high school or secondary school, and I wasn't that great at it. I think I realized there and then it was like, yeah, this kind of that side is definitely not for me. I think I made this a very clear decision to say, yeah, we'll try. We really want to try and do that behind the camera stuff rather than in front of the camera stuff. So yeah, it's not something I particularly seek out or want to do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got like a very small cameo in For Hair. I have no lines. I literally just walk across screen. Um, and it's that's about the limit as in terms of my acting. But it was like around that time I was about to leave school, and it was obviously something I wanted to do, but I didn't really know what to do next because it just wasn't like all these opportunities or anything available at the time. But then I found that like if there was a college course where I could learn to sort of do a little bit of what I wanted to learn, it was focused on all kinds of different aspects from everything from like journalism right through to filmmaking. So it was just kind of like it kind of covered a little bit of what I wanted to do, and spent 2 years on this course to try and it wasn't film school, but it was the closest thing I could get to. And so that taught me a lot about just generally shooting, a lot about sound, a lot about editing and things like that. And I'd go in on like my days off and stuff and just go, right, I'm just going to grab one of the cameras, we'll go shoot something, and then we'll spend the afternoon like putting it together, editing it together. And that was quite an interesting thing to be able to actually go through that process and learn about it firsthand. And it was funny because to begin with, when I first started doing that, it was literally VHS tape to VHS tape, and you had like a console in between, and it was right at the time that like digital editing came into it. So around the time that like probably halfway through learning this stuff, like they got a digital editing suite put together as well. So it was like, wow, okay, let's learn that. Let's learn Adobe Premiere. Let's learn whatever software we can to throw our films together. Let's see what we can do with these computers. So it was again days that I was supposed to be like either at home or doing something else. I'd be in there, be like, oh, I'm just going to sit in here and edit some footage together. And that's just kind of like teaching myself how to use it, because they didn't actually know how to use it either, like the tutors and stuff. They were like, oh, this digital thing's the new thing. We'll just jump on that bandwagon. We've got the funding. Let's get 3 or 4 computers in, and we'll figure it out as we go. But I think in the end, we ended up teaching them more about how to use it than they knew. So
yeah, so really, you've basically taught yourself filmmaking skills, basically.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a little bit of like, well, let's watch this movie, let's study it, let's break it down, let's see what works. Why is it shot this way? Why is it edited this way? Why is it sound this way? That kind of stuff. So there was a lot of, there was a little bit of that, like, but not as sort of like as much, or as in, it wasn't all filmmaking. It was about, we did stuff where we shoot live stuff, like studio based stuff and things like that as well. So, but it was all experience.
Yeah, that's good. So coming into the filmmaking, and like obviously you're doing your own thing now, was your biggest inspiration to be, because obviously you do behind the camera, so did you have like an inspiration that helped you sort of like, like I want to be like that, or was it an actor, or
I don't know. Not to begin with. I don't think there was. I feel like, again, it was kind of interesting because growing up and watching movies, like at that sort of age, like we're talking around sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, up to my sort of teens, those sort of times, you didn't really necessarily pay attention too much to like who worked behind the camera. But then obviously the older you get and the more you start getting into that whole idea of this is what I want to do, you start paying a bit more attention to that kind of stuff. So through like the teens, through into like when I started doing college and started to try and like actually make my own thing, There was a lot of like Romero and Carpenter and Dario Argento, but these are like people that sort of basically they've been the classic horror directors from that era, like that I'd grown up with. So yeah, I mean, there's loads. I can't really pin down to what it's like. It's the same thing as saying, "Oh, what's your favorite movie?" I think if you can actually answer that question, you don't watch enough movies. That's what I always say. I've been asked that a lot. Oh, what's your favorite movie? I'm all, it's like
especially horror movies.
Yeah.
I get asked that question a lot. What's your favorite horror movie? Just about all of them.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if I was asked it recently, and I think like the main answer I'll give is like The Exorcist, because let's be fair, of all the movies, the classics that I've watched, it's probably the one I've watched the most. I can kind of, I can watch that whenever. I don't have to be in the mood for it. It can be, oh, it's a Tuesday, let's put The Exorcist on. Whatever. It doesn't really, whereas some films I feel like I have to. Oh, I'm not really in the mood for that one tonight. Whatever. I'll watch it another time or whatever. But but no, I don't really have a favorite movie, horror or otherwise. It's just it's probably the one I will enjoy the most.
So the question of which is your favorite horror movie would be kind of null and void, right?
Kind of would be, but like I said, if I have to actually answer it, I'll always say Exorcist, just because it's an easy way out of the question, I guess. And I mean, I have the poster on my wall, and I don't have many other sort of film posters, so I guess I must love it above some of the other ones. So I don't know, but yeah, it's not like it's. Yeah, carry on. Go on.
Yeah, it's just like it's one of them that you can't answer without saying for definite. Like I say my top three basically. That's about it. But even some of the bad horror movies I've watched, and I'll say I liked them because it was just the way it was. The fact that somebody's even put it together doesn't really matter. They took the time to do
Yeah.
it.
I think there's you got to understand, everything has its place, has its merit. There are movies that I've that are just painful to sit through, but the thing is, somebody cared enough to make it, and making a film is like, it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's not always fun. So blood, sweat, and tears went into it, and people like say now you got everyone's a critic, the internet and everything. It doesn't take long for something to come out and people to slate it and say, oh, this is terrible, and then the word gets out. But that is, it's quite harsh, but entertainment is what it is now. It's totally different to how it used to be. People consume things differently now, so it's sort of everything's kind of just there, piped into your living room. So, and don't get me wrong, I've done it too, where I'll sit down and I'll go, oh, this film looks great, and I sit and watch and I go, oh my god, that was terrible, But like, I'm not. It's not a diss towards anyone that was involved in it. It just, I know sometimes things don't always come out. The vision doesn't always come out how you want it to, and that's the trick. I think that's something like any filmmaker now, I would say, like, it's good to have that vision. Obviously, you can't really make a film without that vision, but it's very difficult to actually get those images from inside your head onto the screen for other people to see in the way that you want it to, and it's really tricky to do. It's the hardest part of filmmaking, to be honest. But if you can live with the fact that there's a very high chance that you have to kind of compromise a little bit with what you're doing. It may not come out 100% the way you want it to. It's if you can accept that fact quite early on, I think it just helps.
Yeah, and everybody's got a budget, and sometimes it's not all about budget, but some people have a budget and it just they don't know they sort of like they know how to use it, but they use it in the way that they could have done it better.
Yeah,
They
well,
still took the time to make it.
this is the thing with budgets. I mean, it's the financial side of filmmaking is our bit the bane of our existence, to be honest, because obviously, you need money to make things, but we know, there's never enough. And, we've the two main short films that we funded, Run, we wanted to, I think originally the budget for it was about £1,000, and we ended up making it for about 500 quid at a stretch. So we had to sort of, compromise a little bit on certain things with that. And then For Her, which we'll watch later, the original budget for that was close to £3,000. And I think in the end, we made it for about 1,400 quid, which was ridiculous. It was almost impossible to do it, but we managed to sort of call in a lot of favors and kind of go, right, we don't want to compromise on what we want to do too much here, because it's quite conceptually, it was supposed to be a certain way, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't sort of dumb down the idea too much or compromise on the vision too much, and kind of keep that how we wanted it as best we could. And obviously the money's a big side of that thing, so it's sort of, we had to be very careful how that money was spent. And if we can sort of get a favour pulled here and there, we'd do it, and it was quite surprising we were able to make it for what we did, really.
Yeah, so as a director, have you had any really tricky actors?
Yes, but we can't really talk about
that. No, not in the sense, there's no dissing and there's no names calling, but like somebody has just been like really, like impossible to work with.
I mean, another lesson I learned quite early on is just be 100% sure that your actors know exactly what you expect from them. Because they've got the script, they'll read through it, and I have this. I've had situations where it's sort of been like, oh, well, how's it? Are we really doing this? Sort of, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's in the script. Why wouldn't we? Like, is it a problem? And this will be like the day we're going to shoot it or whatever, So it's, there's been a few small experiences. They're quite rare, but I do look like anytime we hire someone now, it's like, here's the script, read through it, be 100% honest with me. If you're uncomfortable with anything, let me know. You've got my phone number, you've got my email. We'll chat about it, we'll talk it through, we'll work it out. And then I'll have to double and triple check, like, are you definitely cool with what we're doing? We're going to cover you in blood, or, but we've never sort of got to the point. There was just one occasion where it was, that kind of made me think, shit, we need to kind of be very clear with people from now on. And so I'm probably like I probably overthink it now, but it was a good lesson to learn, that like, even though it's down on the page and I know what it's going to look like when I shoot it, or if I've got a storyboard, I know exactly how how it's going to work. Obviously, everyone that reads that might have a different interpretation of it in their head and might not think it's quite, the way it is. I'm trying to skirt around the telling you what really happened.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
I can't really go to that.
You can't go into them sort of details. But it was just like, so I have heard it before that, I've had people on before and they've said they've had some actors that are just terrible to work with. They just, they just either don't listen or they don't turn up, and it's just like, it's a general question to really find out if it happens to just about every director, which, from what I'm gathering, it usually does.
I think it's gonna happen. I mean, it's still gonna happen now. Even with no matter what you're making, I think people are just unreliable. It just happens. But like, I think on the other sort of side of things, we've been quite blessed as well, really, because we've worked with some really great, talented people, and it still, surprises me today. Like, some of the talent we've worked with, and we've been lucky enough to work with, and who've actually, because again, an actor. Some actors are able to just pick and choose their roles and not and turn things down, and the fact that they've like come along and gone, oh, read your script and or auditioned for it, said, oh, it sounds interesting, then they read the script and then they're like, oh, this is really good or whatever, and the fact that they're on board with the whole thing as you want them to be is quite an amazing thing. So, but we've worked with some actors who are like really into horror movies, and that's what they want to do. They want to be in this genre. They don't, whereas a lot of people we've worked with, a few people we've worked with, aren't as keen on the genre and would rather be doing other things. It does show, with their kind of how they are on set with everything, and it also shows like in the performance a little bit as well after the fact. You can kind of tell perhaps they didn't give it their all, or perhaps they didn't care enough about it and thought, well, it's a paying job, so I'll just do it, and then I'll do something I want to, try and concentrate more on things I want to do. But yeah, we're lucky that we've worked with people who really want to do it, and it's like, well, now we get to cover in blood. Is that cool? And they're just like, let's go. Those are the sort of people I love working with, because it's like, well, I mean, Derek Nelson, who's been in quite a lot of stuff actually. We worked with him on For Her just before his first proper horror film came out. So we worked with him, and then he did a film called Cabin 28 up in Wales. And I think he's, over the last 4 or 5 years since we made For Her, he has just skyrocketed. He's become like the kind of go-to guy for like the kind of indie B movie, like horror, UK-based horror stuff. So he's probably made about 30 or 40 films. He makes about 4 or 5 a year easily, and he's always being rehired by the same directors and stuff like that. He was amazing to work with, nicest guy you'll ever meet, and anytime we get a chance to work with Derek, we're going to do it, because he absolutely loves what he does. And like I said, he's the sort of person you can go, right, well, it's not scripted, but we're going to try and do this thing and see if it works, or we've got these ideas and we're just going to throw some blood about it. And he's like, yeah, fine, do whatever,
Yeah.
So I love working with people like that.
Yeah. Well, so that brings me on to, like, obviously it doesn't come under the question for future plans, because we actually some people don't know, but you are actually working on a new film.
That's correct.
So if you want to tell people a little bit about that film without giving away too much,
Yeah, no worries. Oh yeah, well, that's kind of, I guess that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah,
so
this is what I mean. We get to this one.
Yeah, so we, again, up to this point, up until recently, we're kind of primarily making short films. We knew that, so let's say we were going to cover that whole. We'll do the first sort of 5 years of our career. We're going to do short films, get some traction on that if we can, and then start thinking about doing feature films. And so we got to that kind of point where we'd made For Her, we'd made Run, we'd made a few other bits and pieces, and generally, like, the sort of response from people was, we're doing okay. We tried to get another short film funded called Warehouse. We were going to do a black and white werewolf movie, and it was going to be a short film originally, but we didn't quite get the funding for that because it was quite pricey in terms of what we were doing. A lot of practical effects, the kind of werewolf costumes and stuff like that cost a lot of money. So we just kind of got kicked in the balls a little bit on that one because we didn't quite make the money. I think like somebody pulled out at the last minute on the funding and we kind of didn't quite do it. So we sort of went away with our tail between our legs and sort of went, well, what do we do now, sort of thing. And then we got a bit of a response from that saying, well, the ideas are good, but I don't, a lot of people were reluctant to help us fund it because it was a short film. And they said, well, the idea is good enough to be a feature. So we went away and thought, well, let's make it into a feature and just, see what we can do. And then in between trying to do that and write that as a feature film, we tried to get a couple of other short films off the ground. That didn't work for various reasons, either people were messing us around, or we couldn't find the right actor, or the right locations didn't exist, or something like that. And so we did a lot of this kind of back and forth over different ideas and scripts we had. And in the end, I just got to a point where I was just so frustrated. Like, it'd been 2 years since we shot for her. So yeah, 2019 it was. And I was just getting frustrated, and I thought, like, well, let's just try and make something, and let's try and control everything that's always out of our control. Let's just say, no, we're going to control that. So, you know, things like location, things like, you know, actors, things like the financial side of it. Let's take control and say, right, let's make it for very little money. Let's make it with the equipment that we have, so it costs even less. Let's shoot it in a location that we have access to all the time. Let's make it so it's like one actor or two actors at most, kind of thing, and really kind of do quite a small scale project. And so I had some ideas for different things, and I kind of mashed them together. But our first kind of feature film, which we're halfway through shooting at the moment, is called Into the Black Abyss Deathstream. And it's kind of like a found footage / POV style horror film where it's primarily around a online streamer who basically plays video games every night for his audience, and a group of masked individuals, let's just say, they break into his house, and this whole thing unfolds where he live streams the whole thing, and it's him trying to escape and, you know, get away, you know, without them catching him or whatever. You know, they don't know, he doesn't know what they're there for. They're just going to rob him or, you know, anything like that. And it turns out that there's a lot more to it than that, because again, what we like to do is try to take something that seems like kind of a simple concept, like on the ground level, and then build kind of more complicated layers of things on top of it. So there's a lot more going on than I'm actually alluding to here. But the basic sort of gist of it is, you know, it's a dude with a camera running around his house trying to evade people that are trying to kill him, you know, and that's really me boiling it down to its basics. But there's a lot more going on than I can really say at the moment.
Yeah. So what's the people will probably be asking when it's probably going to be released and where it's going to be released, how are you going to release it?
Yeah, well, we did a Indiegogo for it last year, around September, October time. I think we started that. We did a proof of concept trailer for it, because we found that, like, in the past it was hard to really sell a lot of the ideas and sell how we were going to present the film. So we shot that, and we shot it very quick and very dirty, and it's just a very sort of small representation of what we're going for. So we did that. We got the funding through, and we've also had an investor, and we've shot. But obviously, we did that. We got the money together, and then COVID kind of hit, and we kind of had to sort of delay everything by quite a bit. So originally, it was supposed to come out this October in time for Halloween, but that's not really possible. We're actually on a break for the summer now, and then we're going to start picking up the second block of shooting in October, and the hope is that we actually get it shot and done and finished by next March, so March 2022. That's the hope in that, and that's when we're going to try and get it out to people who have pledged on Indiegogo and who've got their because we're only sort of doing it digitally at the moment. There's no physical release planned for it yet. We may do something in the future, I don't know. But yeah, so we're covering that. So the aim is to get that done by March, so that people who've helped fund it can have a digital copy of it to watch in their home. As for when anyone else can watch it, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about getting it on Amazon Prime. That would be the sort of easiest, quickest way to get it out to people. But I've also had somebody come up to me sort of in the last few weeks and said, "Oh, you know, the idea is interesting. We like what you're doing. We've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff. There may be sort of like we may be able to work out some kind of distribution. I don't know. It's a case of just seeing what happens. So we'll get it out to people. We're going to try and get it into festivals and just see what happens with it. But obviously, if all else fails, Amazon. You know, it's we have a love hate relationship with Amazon a little bit, but it's the easiest way for us to get our movie out there is to try and self-distribute it through Amazon. But if we ever do like a physical release, we'll find a way to sell it and get it out to people. I don't know. We haven't really thought about that yet.
Yeah, well, hopefully the distribution side of it does come out, and it does pick up, and it becomes a bigger thing for you. So, because that's the hope, and I, for one, I back that project anyway.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Unbiased opinion would be, I'm looking forward to it, and obviously I do have another vested interest, seeing as I'm actually going to be in it, which some people were trying to kill me off in the comments when we spoke about it last.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things because, like, again, like yourself, obviously your interests fall in line with ours, and you've been really supportive of our work. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, look, we can get other people involved in this, because the whole, again, it was tricky because of COVID and things like that. We had to go through a lot of training and certification to be able to shoot a film while still in a pandemic. It was difficult. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to moan about COVID because obviously a lot of worse things have happened throughout that, and just kind of, other than our little film not getting made on time, I'm not going to moan about it. It's not worth it. But like, just like I wanted to try and get people like yourself involved in it because it'd just be kind of cool for us to sort of, work with you. But I know, as soon as I mentioned it to you, like, oh, that's on my bucket list. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was on my bucket list. I've always wanted to be in a horror movie, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna keep plugging away. I don't just want to be. I've said it before. I'll say it to a few other people that eventually I want to be the actual guy that goes around chopping people up, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, you never know. You never know.
But we'll if anybody's got any questions in the chat, I don't think everybody's just commenting and saying you've got plenty of support and they can't wait to see the movie.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean,
ideas.
I think that the
concept.
I think that the Indiegogo is still available. There's like 2 perks. One where you can get your name in the end credits, and one where you can get your name in the end credits plus the digital copy when it is hopefully all finished in March. So it's still there. So if you used to go on Indiegogo, if you're interested, and just search for Into the Black Abyss Death Stream, or just Into the Black Abyss, probably help. If you wanted to help us get it made, no pressure, but obviously that will ensure that you get a copy of it when it's finished. But yeah, it's I'd love to. I really want to kind of like say more about it. I probably can, but it's just also don't want to spoil it for people. Yeah, but we've got our main actor Matt is great. We're treating it like it's although we're trying to shoot it on a fairly sort of pro-consumer camera, we're trying to make everything look like it's a live stream and kind of set up like that, and but there's a lot of, again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of layers of things happening. It's kind of funny like doing this because obviously it's we're going to have like the whole UI thing and user interface and like a live stream chat kind of going up the side and everything like that. I mean, I don't know if have you got the concept trailer?
Search for it.
Yeah, I was just wondering because, like, don't get me wrong, the concept trailer isn't like amazing or anything. It's like we used it to kind of sell the idea of what we were trying to do, and we shot it so quickly because we had a few issues trying to get the campaign up and running, and we just kind of, it was all done very sort of last minute, but I think it helped sell the idea of what we were trying to do. And again, it's not the greatest thing, the effects in it. Again, we shot it in a space for about 5 hours, and I edited it and put it all together with effects and sound and everything like that in the space of about 4 days. So, It was very quick to put that together and then get that online ready for like the campaign and everything. So, but I think it helped having it there so that we could kind of sort of maybe take the pressure off ourselves trying to explain into too much detail what we were trying to do. I think it does a fairly good job of selling the idea of it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you're able to play it, just, you know.
Yeah, obviously I've just got to scroll through the YouTube to find it, which is being a pain for me right now, but I will be able to play it. Looking for proof of concept. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a few up there, right? But I want to make sure I get the right ones. So. And then obviously. Well, that's. Oh. Excuse me while I redo that because it just disappeared. The picture disappeared and everything. Bear with me, but yeah, if anybody's got any questions in the chat, do throw the questions at Daniel while I'm just
yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Searching this out. Daniel, in terms of horror, do you prefer supernatural or slasher types?
I don't mind either, or to be honest. It depends on what I'm in the mood for, because I appreciate a good slasher, especially when it's done well, especially when you've got good effects and a good backstory, and a creepy villain, and it works. But then the supernatural horror movie, again, when they're good, they're good. When they're not so great, whatever. But so yeah, I don't really have a preference there, to be honest. I enjoy both, really. Yeah, I mean, I suppose, in terms of, like, I've mentioned in, like, my favourite movie of all time, The Exorcist. That's a supernatural horror movie to a degree, so I guess if I have a preference, that's it.
Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to Zach's Retro Game Night. Hope you're comfortable, because I think you're going to really enjoy tonight's live stream. Oh, how would you guys like to see the new place? Been here a few weeks and haven't shown you guys around yet. Obviously still a work in progress, haven't completely unpacked.
Can't wait for you guys to see what we're playing tonight.
The Black Abyss is a combination of psychological survival horror and mystery. Are you ready to face your fears, Zach? Whoa. Did you guys hear that? I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry.
To be fair, for it being thrown together quickly, it was pretty good. I enjoyed the trailer. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I think I've watched that trailer about 4 times.
Cheers.
If not more, just because, like, obviously I do try and do my own work, and if I'm supporting something, I'm gonna check it out, and like everybody does, you got to make sure that what you're doing or what they're doing is what you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, from our
say to somebody, I won't say to somebody like just go back a project because you want to. Go back a project because you enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for us, like, all the projects that we'd sort of put out there, we never did the whole proof of concept thing, but we felt like, you know, other people had started doing that, and it was really helping them to kind of sell the ideas of what they were trying to make. And so we were just like, going into this, we needed it. We knew we needed it, because I think a video of us just standing again, so this is the film we want to make, but we can't tell you too much about it. But then trying to explain, like, to everybody how we were going to present it to people, as well as, you know, other than the themes and the story and character based stuff, you know, is the whole sort of the concept trailer kind of does a lot of that for you. So it just kind of, it felt like it did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of getting across the idea very, very quickly to people. Because again, people that are like looking for things to fund or happen to be on Indiegogo or Kickstarter or wherever, you know, they'll look at a project and go, oh, they'll click on it and maybe watch like a 30 seconds of like the pitch video or whatever, you know, and if they don't like the look of what they're on, they'll move to something else. And so I think like us trying to get in there with the kind of a trailer of sorts was a good idea, and it kind of helped sell it, I think. Because if it's just us stood there going, yeah, so we've got this idea, and you know, which is what our other pitch videos pretty much were, you know, and it was worse for Her, because again, with that, there's a massive twist that we couldn't even talk about. So, and the twist is the horror aspect of it. So it's like, so yeah, we're making like a sort of romantic drama, but it's not really. It is a horror film, but only in the kind of last act, and there's a twist, but we can't talk about it. It's like, give us your money. It doesn't really work, you know. So yeah, like going into this knowing that actually story-wise and what we're trying to achieve is actually a lot more complicated than it looks on the outset, you know. It kind of like, yeah, we needed this trailer to be able to kind of do that. But again, we had no money to make it with, and we had no time to make it, because it was a case of like, shit, like, we need this trailer like this week. Let's all get together and kind of shoot like kind of moments from the script. When we had the script already done, it was like, it was done, it was finalized. It was like, okay, let's just cherry pick moments from it that would kind of work in a trailer form. Like literally that opening bit where he's talking to camera, that's literally the first scene of the film. That's the first stuff on the page, you know, on page one. But then it's like a quick clip of this, a quick clip of that, and then it's like murder, whatever, you know. Which we had to, again, there's way more complicated stuff in the final thing, you know, stuff that we're even kind of amazed that we're able to try really even attempt on this kind of budget, you know. But yeah,
Samuel's there with I think it's the idea itself. Is it hard to find? Like zombie movies these days is like, it's all been done. Is it hard to find a unique idea?
Yeah, yes, it is. But at the same time, it's like I mentioned this sort of to begin with. Like, we try and take a unique aspect. So if it's like, if we decided tomorrow, well, after this, we're going to make a zombie movie. Well, like you say, it's all been kind of done. It's like, well, what unique sort of perspective can we put on that? Is there a way to tell the story in a different way? Is there a way to kind of just not be like every other zombie movie? Is there something that hasn't been done yet? What haven't we seen? And that's the thing, that's the beauty about, I think, people that make horror movies, people that make movies in general, but I think more people that make horror movies, because they watch a lot of horror movies, because they know what they like, and that they're able to kind of go, well, I haven't seen that yet, or I'd love to see that, you know. And then that's kind of where that comes from. I think, you know, all right, take the idea, I guess, of a zombie movie. So, you know, I'd like to see perhaps not so much a feature film, but like a short, perhaps, of like a zombie movie where you don't actually really see the zombies, you know. It's more about like two people perhaps stuck in a room and they can't get out, and it's just about them trying to get out, and the zombies are kind of just the antagonist that isn't really sort of seen or heard too much of. You know, they're there, it's alluded to, or maybe it's not even alluded to, maybe they don't even say zombies, you know. That, I think, is a more interesting way to do something, because it's not, the focus isn't on the zombies, you know. No.
you could almost call it like a cross between Saw and zombies.
Yeah, you could.
You know, like that stuck in the sort of like, you know, like you have the Saw aspect of them trying to escape the room.
Yeah, and it's like
But
you can
the
hear
room
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear the zombies, but they're not. You don't really see them, or if you do, it's very brief. You know, I don't know, something like that would be kind of cool. But like, I'm sure that's kind of been done already. But you know, that's what's so difficult about it. You know,
Thinking
because
of like yeah.
I think again,
They could run into the room.
Go on.
Yeah, there's always a bit of delay. It's like they could run into the room to get away from the zombies, and the room could be like a booby-trapped room.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then gives it an element of. Oh, there we go. We got another movie.
Yeah. Oh, we've got loads. I've got loads of ideas. We'll just add it to the list. It's fine. But yeah, no, like it's again.
I hope that answered your question.
Well, yeah, hopefully. But from my perspective, it's not so much like, okay, now we're going to make a zombie movie, or now we're going to make a slasher. It's more about, you know, what kind of story do we want to tell, and it just happens to be whatever it is. You know, we did, you know, Run was like a supernatural horror short, and you know, For Her in a way is as well. This has, you know, the film we're trying to make now kind of has some supernatural elements to it, but it's more, you know, focused on our main character just trying to escape a really crazy situation. And it's kind of interesting that we kind of wrote it sort of before COVID happened, but it has a lot of, I think it's going to be interesting because it's going to kind of mirror a lot of what's happening and what's been going on over the last few years. It's kind of weird that we didn't, you know, obviously we didn't see it coming, but if you look quite deep into the script and stuff, you know, some of the themes and things like that, actually, you know, it mirrors a lot of what's happened. You know, he's stuck in his home, you know, and things like that. It's, you know, so it almost seems like we've riffed off of events, but we haven't really, because it was written beforehand. But there are other themes within the film. The idea of how fragile celebrity is, you know, like the idea of celebrity, and we put people on a pedestal that maybe we shouldn't, you know, people that, again, I'm not naming names, but like people that like don't have a lot of talent, you know, not you, buddy, not you, but people like who don't, you know, who get famous for doing something stupid, or like, you know, not really doing very much. All right, fair enough. No. But you know what I mean, though, like, you know, and so just the idea that, and again, especially in the last however many 5 years, you know, all it takes is like for someone to put out a tweet, not even now, it could have been a tweet from 5 years ago, someone discovers it and then their career is ruined. We play around with the idea of how fragile the idea of celebrity is as well within this a little bit. So there's lots of little ideas and bits and pieces going on, you know, but again, it's not stuff that you'd get from that trailer as such, you know. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, and not just for the fact that obviously you've invited me to be part of it, because obviously I wasn't part of it when I first backed it. So I, for one, am definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's, you know, again, we've got such a small crew that I work with. It's just always nice to bring in other people, even if it's just to play a bit part or walk on camera and, you know, stand in the background or something. You know, it's just nice to have, because again, very small company, no money. We can barely afford to pay for like catering and like things like that, and you know, pay our actors. We pay our actors, but like it's, you know, we just about manage that. You know, so it's such a small team. It's pretty much myself, Michelle, who's like our producer and sort of slash cinematographer, James, who used to write for us but doesn't anymore. He's sort of more a producer now than anything. He does help us with a bit of script stuff here and there. And yeah, just like it's pretty much us three. And then my buddy Chris, he helps us just with anything else that needs to be done, and whoever else happens to be sort of knocking around who help. You know, that's our crew really. It's such a small team. Yeah.
But that's always that must cut down some of the because the smaller it is, you'd be like a little family type thing. So you know you're
Yeah. Yeah.
almost gonna know what each other's doing without actually saying, "Can you get me this?" You might just that little
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
and they know what you mean.
You do sort of develop a bit of a shorthand. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll finish up with just tell everybody your socials where they can get all the then the Indiegogo and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
people
No
can find
worries.
out.
Yeah, so primarily I'm on the usuals, you know, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams. If you just search for Daniel M Young, all one thing, that usually helps. You'll probably find me there. Yeah, and other than that, at Viral Films UK. If you head over to our YouTube page, all our short films are on there. Lots of information about our upcoming feature film, Into the Black Abyss Death Stream. There's a couple of production diaries that we've already shot as well, that you can sort of see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff of what we've already done. And then what else? Mine's gone blank. Yeah, we've got a Twitter for Viral Films, we've got an Instagram for Viral Films, Facebook Viral Films, and the Indiegogo we've got, I think, is still going. I think it's on in demand at the moment. And again, you can still go on there, look at the project, see what we're doing. There's 2 perks available, and one of them, I think it's £4 just to get your name in the end credits, which is pretty good value. And then I think it's £8 if you want to do that, and then get sent a digital copy when the film's completed, which is hopefully March next year.
There you go. So what we'll do is we'll go over and we'll watch. That's not bad at all. Obviously, you can. So now you need to go to the Indiegogo, and you need to actually just spend some money.
Well, yeah, no pressure. At the end of the day, we've got, you know, the project's funded and that, and you know, which we're eternally grateful to everyone that's managed to sort of put a few quid in the hat, sort of thing, and help us get it done. But obviously, you know, you always kind of think, you know, there's only ever so much money. That's why you've got your budget. And I think the thing that's kind of bit us in the arse a little bit is obviously, you know, COVID has, when we did the budget originally, it was before lockdown, and then over lockdown, everything just got so much more expensive. So it was like, you know, we were lucky we'd sort of got the money and bought a lot of stuff that we needed for like props and things like that beforehand. But certain materials and things that we needed, the price just shot up. So it was like, damn, what do we do? You know, so, you know, any sort of like extra kind of income we can get towards it is always going to help. So yeah, but we never end up making a film for exactly what we want anyway. So
No, I don't think anybody does. It's either going to be just under or it's going to be over.
yeah,
So what we're going to watch For Her, which is roughly 20 minutes, and you're on
yeah,
here, so I've got your permission to watch it. So
yeah. No,
if there's any copyright claims, then
that'd be fine.
it's
It's very different to what we're currently doing. So obviously you've just seen like the proof of concept trailer for our, you know, our current project. This was what we managed. We did this 4 years ago now, and it was a very different idea. And I think that's what we've tried our best to do, if we can do it, is make each project very different from the last one. So we're not kind of covering too much of the same ground, and you know, try and take on different styles of filmmaking, and just, you know, different ideas. Like, you know, we haven't seen this before, or we've, you know, we want to do that but in a different way, kind of thing. So yeah, we do want to get sort of like stuck with this idea of that we're the guys that do this one thing. So yeah, it's a romantic drama with a horror twist. That's pretty much how we sold it.
which in itself is a twist.
True. I'm not sure everyone.
Your general. It's not.
I don't think people quite
Yeah,
understood
it's
what we meant by
run-of-the-mill.
that.
Yeah, well, they will do when they've watched it. So I quite enjoyed that. Yeah, if
Yeah,
anybody's got any questions about that movie,
yeah.
feel free. Like, if you wanna talk about it, elaborate a little bit, or now they've seen it.
Well, yeah, that was kind of our. Well, yeah, that was kind of our. Oh, I can hear myself again.
No, I've done it. Yeah, I have to remember to keep turning the audio off.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that was kind of like our sort of take on doing vampires, I guess. You know, we'd sort of done, sort of dipped our toe into supernatural stuff with Run. But with this, it was kind of like, let's do kind of a sort of relationship drama, like a kitchen sink relationship drama. But it's like all of the problems kind of stem from the fact that she's actually a vampire. And, you know, relationships are complicated anyway, but like throwing that into the mix, just, you know, it was kind of weird because we were shooting Run, and then sort of like, well, look, one day we'd like drive into set, and like our writer James goes, I had this idea, you know, and I was like, okay. And he told me it was basically just like, you know, it's like a normal relationship, you know, but it just turns out she's a vampire sort of thing. And like, it was kind of similar to sort of an idea that I'd had a little while back, and it wasn't quite vampires, but it was something kind of similar. And, you know, it kind of reminded me a bit like, you know, the scenes in Hellraiser where the character of Julie is bringing back guys to sort of feed Frank sort of thing. So it's kind of like this kind of thing where, you know, we make it look like it's just a straightforward relationship based drama, and, you know, he's unhappy with the relationship, and, you know, it looks like, you know, he's going to cheat on her kind of thing, but actually what it really is something completely different and far more twisted, and that's sort of where the horror aspect comes into it. But yeah, it's, well, yeah, I guess, yeah, okay, so answering the question, what inspired you for the writing? Well, I didn't write this one. Again, James was primarily a writer on that. I kind of, when it comes to writing at the time, it was more, you know, giving notes and here's where I want to go with it. Let's write that in. I think there were a few things that we shot that weren't actually originally in the script. One of which was like the bathroom dismemberment scene. I remember thinking like we needed to sort of amp the gore up a little bit, because without that it was kind of a little bit flat, and I felt like, well, we can get all these prosthetic fingers and toes and ears and stuff and all this rank shit in, and we can just, you know, and when we didn't, and again, it wasn't scripted, it was literally a case of we shot everything we had done, like needed to shoot for that day. And I turned to Derek, and I'd already spoken to him about it pre-hand, and said, well, can we just try and shoot this scene? We'll literally do it 20 minutes. If it doesn't work, we won't put it in the film. And Derek was like, yeah, let's go for it. Cool, no worries. So it was like my DP on this was a good friend of mine from college, Daryl Pringle. I got him involved to help shoot it. So it's his smallest bathroom in the world. So him in there with his camera, which is not, it's quite a big camera. Me squeezed right up in the corner, Derek in the bathtub with all the plastic and all the bits of like all the tools and all the prosthetic bits and pieces in the bucket, and there's me off to the side flicking blood out of a thing, like a bowl at him and all this kind of stuff. So we're all squeezed into this small space. You know, it's kind of like turned out to be one of the most fun things to shoot out of the whole thing, and Derek absolutely had an amazing time doing it. So yeah, I'm glad we did it and it ended up in the film, because I feel like it needed to pack a bit more of a punch, and that sort of helped with that, and it helped sort of escalate the demise of that character a little bit. So it served the story as well. It wasn't just gore for gore's sake. But what's funny is like I hadn't seen it for a while until watching it just now, and like obviously very low budget, didn't have all the money we wanted to make it with, and so we did a lot of like the makeup effects stuff. Our makeup effects artist that we were going to use for the film decided to quit 2 weeks before shooting, so we had no choice but to do it all ourselves. And myself and my wife actually did all the makeup effects for it as well. But not only that, it was like we had no budget for like sound, so we did all the sound effects and stuff ourselves. So when you hear him cutting up the body, which we can't show a whole body, we didn't have the money for that, so we had to sort of be sneaky about how we shot it. We kind of just it was things like, I remember there was footage of it, but I don't think it ended up anywhere, of me sat in the bathtub with a watermelon and a hatchet and just like hacking away at a watermelon and just getting sounds of like stabbing a watermelon and ripping a watermelon apart and be like, what other fruit have we got? Stick some more fruit and stuff in there and rip it apart. And that's how we got all our sound effects, rather than, don't get me wrong, nowadays you can just go and get stock ones from wherever, but like, you know, we wanted to do everything ourselves, so we weren't reliant on like having to buy or download packs of Disgusting Sounds Volume 20 or whatever. You know, it was like, you know, we could make our own disgusting sounds. It was kind of like, because when we did Run, we needed sounds of bones breaking, and that's the typical bit of celery and carrots snapping, that kind of stuff. So we did all that on that. So yeah, that was quite fun.
I was going to touch on that as well, and I wondered if anybody, and including yourself, wanted to go back and watch Run, because we can play it. Run's still a short one. It's still quite a short movie, isn't it?
It's all right. It's fine. You know, yeah. It's on our YouTube channel if anyone really wanted to watch it. I mean, it's one of those things where it was pretty much the first, I want to say, serious project we did, in that we, you know, I'm not saying we weren't treating our projects as serious, but we were just kind of like shooting stuff with like very minimal prep, stuff that literally cost no money at the time. And it was like, well, let's do something, let's up the ante, let's make something, let's actually get some money behind it, let's, you know, invest in some equipment and actually get some talent involved, because it was, you know, us doing shit on camera and not, you know, all people we knew that would just come around and shoot, or, you know, no, and let's actually hire an actor or an actress to do the job, sort of thing. And that was a interesting experience, because again, shot for half the amount it should have cost, and it was all night shoots on Run, and it was all one long weekend, and I think I probably slept about 4 hours the whole time that we shot it. So we shot 3 nights in a row on that, and I think I only got about 4 hours of sleep the whole time for the whole weekend. So I was, by the Sunday when we'd finished shooting, I think I was probably just, I don't think I knew what planet I was on, to be perfectly honest, when we finished shooting that. But so that was interesting. But yeah, no, it you know, there's a lot of I can pick a lot of holes in that one. You know, I think a lot of people could, to be honest with you, but we tried to go for something quite stylistic and, you know, a little bit, you know, perhaps again, not what people would expect. But again, with For Her, we knew we wanted to just not repeat what we'd already done. And yeah, it's still got the supernatural elements to it. But again, we kind of went, well, let's shoot it as professional as we can. So let's get the best camera we can get without spending a fortune. Let's get some nice lenses. Let's get some people in to help us like actually shoot it a bit more. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't a professional production, like in terms of what you might expect. It was quite, we shoot things quite guerrilla and quite dirty and quite quick, but we find that suits us, to be honest, because that's, you know, we get it done because we don't have the money. We just don't have the money to get like a team of 50 to 100 people in to work on one little film and take 2, 3, 4 weeks out of their lives to do it. You know, that's where the cost is. You know, it's in the manpower, it's in, you know, it's that, and it's the equipment, and then it's props and it's costumes and it's everything else, you know. So we just cut out all the crap and just do it ourselves. And because we do it the way we do it, we have to do it kind of quick and dirty and just shoot it and get it done, you know. So it is, you know, we treat it seriously and we are as professional as we can be about it, but it's more kind of, it is. So when you come down and shoot your bits for our film, you may be surprised how like it's so relaxed though. It's not, you know, we never, you know, that was the thing. Shooting for hair was weird because it, you know, we shot it over. We shot the first scene with the car was shot in Essex, randomly at the end of March of 2017, I think, and then like we didn't shoot anymore for a few months until like July or something, and the rest was shot in on location in a place called Bottisham, and the pub was in a place called Waterbeach. And we managed to get that pub because basically we knew somebody that had a pub, and they were nice as anything about it. They let us shoot. Sunday morning before they opened. They gave us 2 hours. Bottisham. There you go then. Yeah, we shot that in the pub stuff in Waterbeach, and the dude that owns the pub, nicest guy. He was like, "Oh, we can let you shoot on the Sunday morning before we open," and so he gave us 2 hours. So that scene that happens at night actually happened a Sunday morning before all the sort of punters came in and that, and you know, it was kind of mad because it was shooting a fairly biggish scene in such a short amount of time, and that's getting there, setting up, shooting what you need to get your coverage, make sure sound's good, which actually sound wasn't good. We've had to rework a lot of the sound on that, and then break everything down and get out before they opened. So mad.
Yeah. DJ was saying about the lighting. To scroll past, he just wanted to know if you had lighting equipment or did you use like natural light, house lights, etc.
Yeah, so for like we break down the shoot into like a lot of the nighttime stuff we actually shot during the day. But obviously the daytime stuff is obviously during the day, apart from one scene which we had to overlight, but I'll talk about in a minute. So basically anytime it's daytime, we pretty much just use natural light. Obviously outdoor stuff we didn't need to light. It was, we had really good weather when we shot it. It was kind of like middle of the summer. And, so we were quite blessed that it wasn't like overcast or stormy or whatever. It was, really nice, clear weather. So we were lucky there. And then when it's kind of like the nighttime stuff, we tried to use lighting that kind of made sense. So like in the bedroom, if we were shooting the nighttime stuff during the day, we'd black out the windows. But we use like whatever things we'd have, like, lamps and things like that. But then when the kind of more the twist comes into it, we started taking more liberties with lighting and using lighting gels and things like that. So adding more colours, and putting like lights at certain angles where you wouldn't expect light and things like that. So in the shot where she's on the bed, eating the character Van and Jonathan's outside the door, we actually put a light on the floor shining up, and it's quite an unnatural kind of vibe that gives off, but it kind of was helpful to kind of reflect the sort of horror of the moment. So it's kind of, we wanted to have that. We needed a juxtaposition, so the horror element stood out from everything else. Sorry, my kids just got up. But yeah, so it was a question of just making these little decisions in terms of like, well, obviously, shooting in daylight, you can obviously you can still use lights and things like that to, get the perfect kind of setup. We were lucky enough that we didn't really need to do any of that stuff for the daytime stuff. It was more anytime we had to sort of do night. So it was quite funny because one day we spent quite a bit of the sort of daytime shooting nighttime scenes, and it got to the point where we had to shoot daytime stuff and it was getting too dark. So we were like having to overlight certain rooms. So like the scene towards the end where he's just kind of buried Anne's body or what's left of it, and comes home, that's supposed to look like early morning the next day, and we had to just catch they call it the golden hour, where the sun's sort of low in the sky, and it looks like we've exactly we've managed to time that right. So we shot that stuff, and it literally looks like early in the morning. But by the time we shot the stuff after it, where he walks in with all the in his overalls and stuff like that, it was quite dark by that time, so we had to overlight the room to make it look like it was still early daytime, like the sun was still coming up and things like that. So that was interesting little problems that we managed to solve. But yeah, so lighting was a weird one because we didn't overuse it, but there was a couple of moments we had to, and then again during like the kind of horror stuff, when all that stuff kicks off in the third act, that's kind of where we implement it a lot more. But yeah.
Yeah. I like I say, I watch them all and I get into them, and I'm like you. I just watch them. I don't think too much into horror movies. I just watch them, and I'll be like, and then somebody will ask me about it, and I'll be like, Dory the fish, and I was like, oh yeah, well
Nice.
what?
Oh, cheers, man. Appreciate the fact that you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's not filmmaking's pretty, it's all subjective, isn't it? So it's like any kind of art form. There were people that absolutely loved what we were doing with that, and there were people that were like, no, not for me. I think again, we knew going into this it was going to be a fairly big ask, because we're talking about a short film, that, all right, cut the credits off, it's like 17 minutes or something. So, but a good 10, maybe 12 minutes of that is getting to the kind of point of it. And so you've got to sit through over half of it, at least, the runtime, to sort of start getting to the more interesting elements and then the reason why people are there, sort of thing. So we kind of, we knew it was going to be a bit of an ask for some people to actually sit through it. But what we found is actually, like, the majority of horror fans actually really appreciated it, because it was a surprise. It was, some of the twists were quite unexpected, and, trying to lead people into kind of a false sense of what, preconceived notion of what was going to happen. But I think we left some breadcrumbs and things in there, like, that were little hints at things. We tried to be a bit clever. So, like, when, the character of Elizabeth is sat on the bed sort of playing with her hair, and she's like, oh, I think I want to try blonde next. It's not, that seems like quite a simple throwaway line about her hair and shit like that. But when it's actually in the context of the film, she's essentially telling Derek's character, Jonathan, that, she's in the mood to eat a blonde, or whatever, but to her, it's like the same as saying, oh, I'll fancy an Indian or Chinese tonight, or, have a burger or a kebab or something, it's not like, to her, it's no different. But that's something that kind of like we wanted to put in there. So if people watched it again, maybe, they may or may not pick up on little things like that, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched I generally have watched horror movies or any kind of movies more than once, because there's always something you miss the first time.
Yeah, I love all that.
It'll be the smallest one. Yeah, it'll be the smallest detail to something really big. Like, you maybe just wasn't paying attention at that time. Like we all do. Your phone goes off or something like that, and it's like, oh yeah, I didn't see that happen. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, I think, I mean, sort of, as I say, DG Mindtricks has just said, I've been an audio technician and started stage lighting design about 14 years ago. So naturally look to think about things like, yeah. So I mean, basically, yeah, I mean, I did the same, because, studying film and learning about film and making films, it spoils films in a way, because you look at them from a completely different aspect, much like, you're saying, because you work in light with a bit of lighting and stuff like that, when you see something like TV or film or whatever, it's something you notice, because that's, you've trained yourself, you've trained your eye to see that or whatever, or hear something, so it's making movies can sort of can make movies more enjoyable, or it can kind of spoil them a little bit sometimes, because I'm always picking out things going, that's not right, that shouldn't have been there, like, I hate myself for it, because sometimes I just want to be able to enjoy something, but or at the same time it's like you can't stop yourself from doing it. But but I'm also quite forgiving for things like that, because I know how hard it is to make these things. I know, like, making a successful movie is like catching lightning in a bottle, really, because again, it's not just a case of, you could have like the best idea in the world, you could think of something that's like never been done before, but if if there's a weak link in that chain from conception to actually executing and getting it made, it could all just go to shit, because you think on an average movie, you've got hundreds and hundreds of people working on it, and if at any point something goes wrong, or someone doesn't do their job properly, or the money doesn't come free, or this certain thing doesn't work out exactly how it wanted to, how they wanted it, it can spoil things. And so I appreciate when a movie comes out and it does well, and it should do well. I was trying to think of an example, but I can't think of anything that I've seen recently that sort of I would say is like, there's no masterpieces anymore. But I think what I'm trying to say is, like, it's you again, almost going back to what we were saying before, you kind of have this appreciation for it because we've been there and done it, and it's one of the toughest things to do. And then I do feel bad for people who make stuff and then it's doesn't do as well as they wanted it to, or people rip it apart, because it's every project is it's someone's baby at some point, and then they nurture that baby and it grows up, and then they let it off out into the world, and then people go, well, this is a load of shit, whatever,
Yeah.
And so that's heartbreaking. So I understand that,
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, when I just made the thing I did, I was like, I wasn't even gonna post that anywhere. I thought, I'm just gonna put it on my YouTube because nobody will see it there anyway.
No, but like, that's the thing, though. You
And-
did it, and you made something that was it was it started off as an idea in your head, and then you probably thought about it for a bit, and then you went, yeah, I can probably do that, and then you did it and got it to a place where you thought, I could do something with it, or I couldn't, but you did, and it got into a festival and all that. So it's not, I'm sure you're glad you did, and don't get me wrong, if you carried on trying to do things like that, it's just like anything. You sort of learn the ways around how to do certain things, and kind of, it's just like anything. It's like any trade or any art form. It's like, I can't paint or draw, but like, which is why a lot of times I don't really use storyboards. If I need storyboards, I'll speak to somebody else, or or if I will draw like the worst sketch possible. Go, yeah, draw that. That's what it's supposed to be. Just do it nice and neat, so it doesn't look like a fucking 5-year-old trick, sort of thing. So yeah, like, but if I practice drawing every day, obviously, yeah, but I don't have that sort of time, so it's not. Yeah, I don't do storyboards if I can help it.
No.
It's all up there for me. But it's stuff you learn, it's stuff you pick up. I've technically been making films for quite some time. Way back in. I'm glad like there's none of like the content I made in college actually exists online anywhere. That's amazing. I'm happy for that, because I've made like everything from like short like animation type stuff that we shot on actual film, to like loads of other tests on film, to music videos. We did some music videos, and then there's like a half-hour film of like me and my friends getting drunk and doing stupid shit. So it's like, I'm glad that's not out there. But it served its purpose. It was like it had to be shot and edited and put together, and music put on and stuff like that. So it's like, these are, the process of making that, even though it's awful, you know, and I look back at it and go, oh, cringe at it. It was still what kind of led me to where I am now. It served its purpose. So, and I'm glad I've done it because, you know, it's, again, those are skills that I can take with me and utilize today, you know, making our first feature or whatever, you know. But yeah, it is a hell of a process. It's not for the faint of heart. Again, it's just one of the things that kind of makes me think, appreciate films, because again, you know, you can sit and watch, like, go, I don't know, rent something on whatever service or pay for a film or whatever, stream it, and be like, oh, well, that's 2 hours or an hour and a half of my life I'm never getting back. And you can sit and moan about it, and that's fine. But, you know, at the same time, just think, you know, at least you didn't have to edit it. At least you didn't have to do the sound design on it. At least you didn't have to, like, color grade it. You know, someone else did all that, so you could sit and enjoy it or not enjoy it. And, you know, like I said, I'm as guilty. Like, sometimes I see something and I'm really excited by it, and I watch it and I'm disappointed. I'm like, oh no. But then, you know, like I said, I still appreciate that it exists. I appreciate that at some point somebody went, I want to make this, and then other people down the line went, yeah, let's make it happen, and the money got together, and, you know, other people were on board with it, and it happened. You know, if nobody made anything, then we'd be very, very bored right now, you know. But I think
I think there's a lot of people that are, like, creative. There's a lot of us creative people out there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are creative that don't do anything with it. They don't actually follow it through. It'll be like,
yeah, and I think that's worse. I'd rather see people make stuff and fail.
I've been guilty of it.
You know, than just not take the chance, because, you know, you could wake up tomorrow and go, oh, I just had this idea, you know, or had a dream or something, you know, and it's like, that'd make a really cool film. And then, you know, if you got the choice, you could sit on it and not do anything about it, or you can, you know, write it, get other people interested in it, and see where it goes. And people have done that, you know, and made amazing content and films and TV shows, and just based off of doing things like that. So it's like, if you don't do it, you're never going to know. But it's just, you know, you kind of have to sort of not be afraid to fail, really, innit? I think that's the thing. That's the key. You know, it is, yeah, well, exactly. Failing is the first step to success. Exactly. There you go. So, you know, if you don't fail, well, if you don't try, you'll never, you know, you never know anyway. But you got, you know, sometimes you have to fail to succeed. You know, it's,
yeah.
Like I said, I think you know, people that want to make movies, I think people always ask for the advice. What advice would you give filmmakers? And most filmmakers will just be like, go out there and make something. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's really good advice. It's sound advice, because obviously, you know, you need the motivation. You need to be able to go out and do stuff. You need to want to, you know, enough to get off your ass and do shit, because it's so easy to talk about something and not actually do it, you know. But at the same time, it's like, I think people are so scared to fail or be criticized for things that, you know, you could say you've got a room full of, like, I don't know, 50 people that want to be filmmakers, and you say to them, yeah, go out and make something, you know. There'll be people there that know exactly what they want to make straight away. They know exactly how to do it. And there'll be people that don't have a clue. And the people that don't have a clue, obviously they're going to struggle, and they're going to, you know, second guess themselves all the way through the whole process. And they may, you know, it may come to sort of them making something, putting it out there, and someone going, well, that's rubbish. And that's it. Their confidence is so knocked so down so far that they're just like, well, I'm giving up on this, you know. But if you can get past the fear of that, then, you know, you're good to go, because you're just unstoppable then, really, aren't you? You know, it's, if you're not, but I mean, like I said, I can take the criticism a lot of time. We make something and we'll put it out there, and we'll contact, you know, certain websites and places that will potentially do a write-up for it and say, here's a screener of it, or here's a link to go watch it, or whatever. If you're interested, write a review. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And, like, we've been lucky that, you know, a good 90% or whatever of our sort of the reviews that have been written about our stuff has been fairly positive. But, you know, you get the odd one that's like, it's not great, you know, all this. And it's like, you know, oh well, it is what it is. Can't win them all. It's not for everybody, you know. You got to kind of do it for yourself in a way.
I get a lot of criticism every day. I get a lot of hate every day, so that don't really bother me.
I think you're gonna have a lot of fun when it comes to shooting your stuff. It's, you know, I respect people that have strong opinions, because you know, you start to sort of develop relationships within industries and things like that, and so it's very easy to sort of contact, you know, well, for example, Bloody Flicks, Paul Downey, he runs that website. Great guy. I've you know, I was in a documentary he made about Halloween. Lovely bloke, and he, you know, he's, you know, been very sort of praising of our work and loved For Her. He put it on his list of like best shorts of that year, that kind of stuff. So so we've always got on really well with him, and he's actually an executive producer on what we're doing now, because I wanted to work with him again. But obviously when it comes to, like, you know, in the future reviewing our stuff for his website, I'm just, you know, I'll be like, look, Paul, just be honest. If you don't like it, write it. It's fine. I can take it. I'm a big boy. I don't need to, like, you know, don't sugarcoat it. Give us your opinion. That's your job, you know. So I'm happy, and I've got more respect for someone that does that than will blow smoke and just be like, oh yeah, it's great. And really, they're just like, it's a load of shit, to be fair, you know. So I would much rather hear what people have to say and just sort of gauge, you know, because the internet, it can be a cruel place. And I think, again, when you put your work out there, you kind of know, you can kind of gauge what people really think about it by just looking in, you know, reading the comments on YouTube or reading reviews on Amazon Prime or wherever you happen to have it. You know, if people are generally pretty honest, you know, IMDb, places like that, you know, they are fairly honest about stuff. So, you know, but I respect it. You kind of have to. But yeah, no, it's cheers for having us on and letting me talk shit for like a couple of hours or whatever. It's been fun. But yeah, it'd be good to do it again.